Hello everyone, I'm Sam, and today let's talk about dragons. Dragon units have been good for a long time, but Update 2.0 gave them a gigantic boost, the Weapon Refinery. In the Refinery, the Dragon Breath weapons can be upgraded. All of them, when refined, gain adaptive damage against ranged enemies. All the breath weapons gain additional stats, including hit points, attack, speed, defense, or resistance. If you refine Dark Breath or Light Breath, you can also gain an additional effect, an augmentation to their debuff and buff respectively. Weapon refinement doesn't really change how the dragons are played, or even how they're built. It just makes a bunch of already good units a lot better. First things first, I'm mostly going to be looking at Lightning Breath builds in this video. Flame Tongue, Dark Breath, and Light Breath are a lot better than they used to be, but the built-in distant counter from Lightning Breath is, in my opinion, just too good to pass up right now. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about why you'd want to use a dragon in the first place. Dragons are bulky enemy phase units. They deal magic damage on their melee attack, and most dragons can run a lot of different builds thanks to their well-rounded stats. Adult Tiki is the exception. She's kind of pigeonholed into a few builds just because her speed is so low. Of all the dragons, only 2 are 5-star exclusive, and one of those is a dancer anyway, so it's pretty easy to pull for them. In terms of skill inheritance, Adult Tiki and Naui come with Lightning Breath by default, Faye has Renewal, Corrin has Draconic Aura, and Ninian has Fortified Dragons. Dragons don't require much work to be good, but they have a very high power ceiling, making them great units to invest in for the long term. Personally, I recommend using Weapon Refinement to round out your unit's defenses, for example giving a resistance boost to a high defense unit, or using it to boost important stats even further, like giving female Corrin extra speed or attack. Now let's talk builds. As always, these aren't the only builds, just a few that I really like. We'll begin with 2 very generic builds. These will work on pretty much any dragon, and most of you are probably familiar with them. First we have the Triangle Adept Quick Riposte build, using Young Tiki as an example. This build has been around since just after Skill Inheritance was introduced, and with good reason. It's rock solid, cheap, and punches well above its weight. Triangle Adept is a great skill to use in Arena Assault because it lets you build hard counters for specific colors. This build uses Lightning Breath, refined with speed, defense, or resistance, to kill enemy mages and archers, Triangle Adept to boost the good matchups even more, and Quick Riposte to secure kills. The C slot, Sacred Seal, and Special are flexible. Up next we have the Fury Quick Riposte build, using female Corrin as an example. Like the Triangle Adept build, Fury builds have been around forever. This build can perform decently well on both the player and the enemy phase. Lightning Breath provides distant counter, and we refine it with speed, defense, or resistance. Fury boosts all of our stats, Quick Riposte secures kills, and the C-slot, Special, and Seal are, again, mostly flexible. You can choose to run Vantage on faster dragons like Corrin or Naui with a plus speed nature, but I personally feel like Quick Riposte is going to be better most of the time. Up next, we're going to take things further and look at a very high investment build. This distant counter, steady breath, Quick Riposte build works well on pretty much any dragon, but I'm using Adult Tiki and Naui as examples. By abusing the combined power of distant counter, steady breath, and Quick Riposte, this build lets you rip your opponent to pieces, all while taking next to no damage. It's pretty much the ultimate enemy phase unit. It's incredibly durable and works well for both arena and really difficult PvE content. For the weapon slot, we keep Lightning Breath for distant counter, and then refine it with either defense or resistance. For the A slot, we run Steady Breath, both for increased enemy phase durability and for the drastic reduction in special charge time. The B slot is Quick Riposte. For the C slot, I highly recommend a skill like Panic Ploy or Infantry Pulse to provide more team utility, but these are definitely luxury items. For your special, I recommend Bonfire, Ignis, or Aether. Your Sacred Seal should be distant defense or close defense, based on whichever one is more helpful for your specific unit. Okay, that's a lot of time spent talking about how to build dragons. How about killing dragons? Dragons are vulnerable to dragon-slaying weapons, unsurprisingly, so they take extra damage from the Naga and Divine Naga tomes, as well as units wielding falchion. Additionally, because dragons are all infantry, they do take bonus damage from units wielding Poison Dagger. Seems simple, right? Just throw a Dragonslayer at them. Sadly, it isn't that simple anymore. The extra bulk and adaptive damage from the Refinery upgrades makes killing dragons on the player phase really hard, even with dragon slaying weapons. Julia and Deirdre, for example, can pretty much always one-hit KO Naui and Corrin, but if they aren't careful, they'll die to counterattacks whenever they attack into Adult Tiki, Young Tiki, or Fae, depending on the nature of the units involved. Falchion performs just fine against Fae, but against other dragons it can get stonewalled by raw defense, and then killed with Steady Breath enabled specials. Poison Dagger is almost not even worth mentioning. Daggers just don't have enough attack to punch through dragon defenses now. If dragon slaying on the player phase doesn't work, how should you kill enemy dragons? You can use your own tank busters to handle them, no problem. But there's also a bunch of high-res melee units worth another look, mostly flyers, who can find a new lease on life as Dragonslayers. Units like Florina and Sheeta come to mind right away with their absolutely crazy resistance, as do units like Oboro if you inherit skills like Close Defense. You can also use sweep effects like Fire Sweep and Water Sweep to sidestep the strong counterattack damage from most dragon builds. To wrap things up, dragons are really good, but they aren't unmanageable. They're readily available, don't take much upfront investment, and scale really well. They're probably the unit type I'd recommend the most to players who are free to play, or who only spend small amounts of money on the game. Is it time for Dragon Emblem to take over the metagame? Maybe, but only time will tell. Hopefully I did a good job with this video, but that's not for me to decide. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. As always, I hope to see you next time.